Here's where the doTERRA business opportunity kind of steps in, because I had been sharing for a long time and all of a sudden receiving checks. And I was doing that casually in my spare time, evenings and weekends. I built to the rank of silver. And so I had a pretty good income that helped provide of resources to put my other son, Matthew, into college. And at one point, I just said, what if I did this intentionally? What could be possible for me in terms of more time freedom to really dedicate myself to healing the world, helping other people have hope that look at all I've gone through, and yet I stand here with a smile on my face and gratitude in my heart because of what I have been given.
Hello, hello. My name is Andy Goddard, and I believe that you were born to be free. And doTERRA just happens to be the very best vehicle for creating your freedom, whether it's freedom in the financial realm, in the physical realm, emotional, social, like freedom is meant to be yours, and it's possible through doTERRA. Natalie and I have been at doTERRA for 18 years now, and we just love the journey of becoming, the journey of the struggle, the stretch, and the achieving. We love to explore different examples of success and share those with you. And so that is what we've been doing. That's why we've invited Terri Pace to come on and share with you her story and how she's achieved different levels of freedom. So Terri, welcome. And where are you from?
Hi, Andy. It's so good to see you.
You too.
I'm on Long Island, New York, so quite a bit a distance from Utah, but love the journey coming out there. You're always so welcoming for us out-of-towners when we come to different events. And one of these days, I hope to get to one of your doTERRA experiences with some new builders.
Absolutely. You're always welcome. So Terri, you have been around for quite some time. How long have you been in doTERRA?
2010, August is my
Okay.
anniversary, so it'll be 16 years.
16 years in August. That's fantastic. So go ahead and take us on this journey. Where were you before doTERRA? What was life like? What were some of the struggles then?
Okay.
And how did doTERRA solve some of those?
Well, life was very different way back when. So that's 16 years ago. And a childhood friend, her name was Bernadette O'Donnell, came to New York to visit her parents, and she gave me an aroma touch.
Mm.
It literally changed my life
Mm.
and began me on this journey towards, it kind of opened that door of like, what are natural solutions and what can they do for me? So the backdrop is I'm a widow. My two sons were very young when my husband died, and my oldest son is medically fragile to this day. He has round-the-clock nursing care. And when Bernadette came over and gave me that aroma touch technique, I had been searching. We were literally throwing everything that modern medicine had to help my son Dominic, and he was barely surviving. Like every day I would wake up and I had a job because my husband had passed away, and I had to choose. Do I go to work or do I stay home and take care of my son, who needed me? By the time, let's see, he was 17 years old. He had been in the ICU more than 25 times. And that doesn't even count all the times that we managed hospital level care in the home because we had nurses and oxygen and drugs and all sorts of stuff. But as I said, he was barely surviving. And so when Bernadette sat at my kitchen table and told me who was doTERRA, not what, who, right? Who is doTERRA? She told me about the heart of the founders, what they really wanted in terms of sourcing pure essential oils so that they can provide a reliable therapeutic outcome. And as I sat there, even though I had had a car accident, I was in so much pain every day, lifting a child in and out of a wheelchair, I was not thinking about me. Like, what do you think I was thinking about? I was thinking about Dominic, and I was like, oh my gosh, could this be the answer to my prayers? And so from that moment on, I dove off the deep end. And so I have to say, I'm a little bit of a science geek. And if you were a practitioner, doctor, nurse, knew anything about essential oils, I wanted to talk to you. And so that led me to my first East Coast conference with Becky Hinsey. And she had Dr. Hill and, all the big names there. And it was like the first time seeing the world through completely different eyes. And so over time, that full-time job got really difficult for me because I had no more sick time, I had no more vacation time. And so I literally was forced to choose to go to work when I knew the better thing to do for my family was to stay home. And by then, what was I doing? Well, Dominic was having amazing results, and people were watching us. They were noticing, they were like, what are you doing differently? Like, he looks so good and he hasn't been in the hospital in a while. Like, what are you doing? And I said, I'm just doing this, and I'm like, sharing essential oils with them became a very natural thing. Well, I'm like, well, it helps Dominic's immune system. I'm sure it can help yours. And, it helps him sleep. I'm sure. Why don't you just try this? And so I began just by sharing my own experiences and, you know, helping people get curious. I think that's the thing that I really was interested in. God's creation is put before us to help support us through every experience. And I think we as a society kind of were disconnected from that. And we've lost that curiosity, that wonder and awe of what is God's creation possible to do for us. And so by sharing my story over and over and over again and having people watch how I lived my message. It wasn't just that I talked about it. They saw me as a witness to when you live this as a lifestyle, amazing things become possible. Like, we're not just kind of living this life of intervention with natural solutions. Natural solutions becomes the foundation for what we're trying to do. And, I think, what am I doing different? Nothing. I'm still sharing my story. I'm still telling people about my own authentic experiences and trying to give them hope in sometimes what is a hopeless situation. Like, I was there 16 years ago. I was wondering, like, he's barely surviving. How much longer can we do this? And I will say, it has been a journey. And in the 16 years that we've been doing this, Dominic has only been in the hospital twice. This is a kid who lived in the hospital. Once was to have surgery, and the other was to have a transfusion. And so our life is very different. And it's not that he doesn't still have issues. I mean, he's still in a wheelchair. He still uses a G tube. He still has round the clock nursing care. But now we have tools at our fingertips. And as the different nurses would join our team, that's what I would do is I would just say, let me show you what these oils can do. And I want you to start like trusting. And so they would use the oils. They would have no experience in them, but they would see a drastic change in Dominic's status. And they would get curious themselves and go, wow, well, maybe I could do this for my children, for my family. And then it starts to spread from there. And I'm grateful to Bernadette for learning the aroma touch technique and coming and giving one freely to me just because she saw the pain that I was in. I'm grateful to doTERRA for choosing to source essential oils that are so pure that they can be the foundation for reliable therapeutic outcomes. And I'm grateful for the nurses and the doctors who are open to hearing my story as well. All of us, consumers, everybody, like, they're open to hearing the story. They're open to having an experience of their own. But practitioners sometimes are not quite so open. And so I was so blessed to find a few practitioners that, while they didn't know a lot about it themselves, they were open to learning. And so over the course of these 16 years, we have now weaned Dominic off of 6 medications that most of them were lifelong, and a few of them had some serious side effects. And I kept pushing back. I'm like, well, what's the exit strategy? And the doctors had none. They said, he's on this for the rest of his life. I'm like, well, it's going to be a pretty short life then, because have you seen what this does? I mean, one of them was an antibiotic, but they wanted him to be on for the rest of his life. Think about that. Like, he cannot be on an antibiotic forever. that will never work. His gut biome will break down. That means his immune system will break down. And that's what we need. We need a fighting army. So I was really blessed that I found some practitioners who were willing to write medical orders. And we, one by one, weaned him off some of these very harmful therapeutic medicines. And now we live in both worlds. It's not that I'm saying modern medicine is bad. It is the reason both he and I are alive. But I live this and I teach this, that it's, what can we bring from the best of both worlds? And how do we minimize the side effects with very short term, get me to a particular goal, and then let my lifestyle choices sustain that goal? And so, like I said, sharing my story is all I do every day in every way. There's a story. And so I tell people, if you have this as an experience, likely we've probably gone through it already, because it's been so rich.
Wow.
So
What a beautiful journey and an amazing victory in so many ways. So much overcoming. Talk to us a little bit more about your background in terms of sales experience, marketing experience. I'm guessing it's minimal, but tell us more.
actually, it's pretty significant,
Okay, tell
but
us.
in a different way. And so I started working at an airline and did a lot of traveling. So I got to see the world, which it opens your mind. And I think that ability to see life through different people's eyes, different societies, different ways of living, helped nurture my curiosity. Then I finished school. I became an accountant. I had a CPA and I worked for Price Waterhouse in Manhattan for a number of years, and then had kids, and then had to kind of pull out of whatever career path I was on,
Hmm.
and take care of my kids. And then an opportunity presented itself where I was going to work for the local Department of Health here in Suffolk County. And I remember that interview. They were telling me all the pieces of the health department. We take care of kids with special needs. We take care of people who are underinsured or have no insurance with health clinics. We take care of people who are at risk, with mental hygiene issues. We have the medical examiners under our umbrella, so we do a lot of things. And all I remember saying to the gentleman who was interviewing me was, all that's great, but I just want you to be clear that whatever you give me to do, I have to make the world a better place, because I do that by staying home. So for me to leave my home and all the things that I'm doing there, this has to be better than that. And what he offered me was a way to make that better. And so I did that for like 16 or 17 years. But as I mentioned in my story, it was a 9 to 5, very rigid job. It's civil service. And so it didn't lend itself for me to, come in late or take time off, or the nurse called in sick, like whatever those things were. And so while I loved what I did, I needed that time freedom. And, here's where the doTERRA, business opportunity kind of steps in, because I had been sharing for a long time and all of a sudden receiving checks, and I'm like, where did they come from? Right. And I was doing that casually in my spare time, evenings and weekends. I was built to the rank of silver. And so I had a pretty good income that helped provide a source of resources to put my other son, Matthew, into college. And at one point, I just said, what if I did this intentionally? What could be possible for me in terms of more time freedom to really dedicate myself to healing the world, helping other people have hope that look at all I've gone through, and yet I stand here with a smile on my face and gratitude in my heart because of what I have been given. And that's what really, as an accountant, CPA, I started diving into the comp plan and realized the brilliance of what doTERRA was doing with their comp plan. And I don't know that anybody really understands it. I can explain it in a very simple way. All of the bonuses that you see are to help you perform or behavioral They want certain behavior from you. And so the fast start bonus, they want you to share with others, and they know that you're sharing yourself empty. So they have to put money in your pocket right away. And so it's a weekly bonus, and it is 60 days, because they want you to walk with that new person for 60 days, help them build a healthy habit, help them not feel that overwhelmed. Like, we've enrolled them and we've given them this whole new world. And there are a lot of people that come out of that birth canal and they're like, oh my gosh, like, I can't. And so the brilliance of how they pay the fast start bonus is to get us to do those two things, to share and to walk with them. And the fact that it's 3 levels, right? The 7-level commission is condensed into the 3 levels that are most responsible. They're closest to that new member, to keep your close to you as you're enrolling other people. Well, that's the first bonus you see. And then you move into the Power of 3 bonus, which is, it's a bonus for building communities, like-minded, like-hearted people coming together in a community that supports itself. And, as you build those vibrant communities, the Power of 3 bonus, duplicates itself over and over and over again, because it's not my community, it's our community. And so who are you bringing into this community? And then, of course, you just do those things, and all of a sudden you start seeing unilevel and other leadership pools, because doTERRA doesn't want you to just stop there. If you want to stop there, you can, but their unilevel and their bonuses are all to help you become a leader in a movement, not just someone casually sharing, but both are okay. You get to choose in at whatever level works for you. And I think that that's the brilliance of their comp plan.
That's a great way to, I love that perspective on the comp plan. It really is inspired. I've seen so many other companies come and go, the comp plans that looked so attractive and they seemed so simple, but they didn't last.
No,
So doTERRA's comp plan is built to last.
built to last. And now with the tweaking, right?
Mhm.
It gave you a little bit more flexibility in the Power of 3 bonus, which is kind of what
Mhm.
sustains you while you're building a
Mhm.
bigger organization, while you're cultivating your leadership, which
Mhm.
you have to learn how to believe in yourself in order to get there. So
Mhm.
while that's happening, the Power of 3 bonus is really your main source of income. And
Mhm.
adding the boost is rewarding you to keep sharing. Because when we
Mhm.
look at the percentages of the population that have the gift of what we enjoy, it's very small. And
Mhm.
so we're really not done. And I think doTERRA tweaking the plan to add the boost is to get people to stay sharing,
Mhm.
stay with people who are
Yeah.
just joining this movement. They're just joining.
Mhm.
Their eyes are just being open to the possibilities.
Mhm.
And there are so many possibilities. That's where this wonder and awe comes in. And, you know,
Yeah.
part of what we do in our team that works is that we nurture thriving relationships.
Mhm.
And the best way that we have found to do this is to actually just bring your community together
Mhm.
and make them fun. That's
Yeah.
all I can say. It's just like,
Mhm.
I think if you were looking from the outside and you said, okay, what is Terri Pace's hallmark? It is, number one, that I'm a science geek and I help to translate these really complicated science things into, what does this mean for me? And help you experience again the wonder and awe. Like, did you know that this is how this is working? And like it helps people realize there is a creator, that there is a divine intelligence to how everything works, including our body. And when
Mhm.
we obey the laws of nature in our body, we experience health. And when we dishonor them, we experience what I call an uncomfortable message.
Mhm.
Your body's just trying to get your attention to say, hey, stop doing this.
Mhm.
Right. So we
That's a
do all
great.
sorts of fun events, and um, these are some of the ones that I will suggest to our audience today. So number one, we do something called Lunch and Learn, and it's every single month, and it has a very natural solutions unplugged look and feel, because we don't really have a set agenda. We bring people together, we tell some stories, and some of the questions that come up in terms of, well, what would I do if I looked at this through the eyes of someone who lives and loves a natural solutions lifestyle? What would that look like? And so whatever they bring up, we get to put on different glasses and say, okay, let's look at this with a perspective of what is your body asking you to do? What does it need from you? Because it either needs something to get out of the way or something that is missing. That's the only two things. And so, we just teach in that moment, what's the deeper dive into what your body's trying to tell you. And so we do this over lunch. And we've been doing it for 15 years now. And it's probably one of my most well-attended events. I have people who will text me when we have the next round of dates come up, and they'll be like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm going to miss it. That's how excited people are to come into the community. And what I have witnessed is the people who are sitting are from all different leaders in my team, but they have now become fast friends that see each other outside, and they may or may not be sharing or building a business, but they are supporting each other's journey. Like, oh well, like I might be talking about this topic, but they're sitting there at that table and they're going, okay, well, I did this and I did that, and then after they've had this little conversation, they might bring it to the larger audience to say, okay, we kind of hit a wall here. Can you help us through another protocol? We also do something called the Oil Social, which I bring people to my house once a month. I have food that is all infused with different essential oils. And again, that same natural solutions unplugged look and feel, that we just talk about life. Tell me what's going on in your life, and let's see what kind of solutions we can put together for you. What else do we do? I mean, for a long time, I love going to the beach and watching sunsets. And this is Long Island, so in the summers, we would actually do that Oil Social down at the beach. And as the team got bigger, it got a little bit more difficult because most of the beaches are, private or local beaches. So you're having trouble getting all the people in. But that was a fun way to do something. We also, so I just have to remark that what works is actually where doTERRA and all of their leaders are kind of moving into these unplugged events. These, let's just talk about life, talk about how can we find a solution to what's going on through this lens of, living and loving a natural solutions lifestyle. And, I have some Zoom events that I do. It's called the oils you don't use, right? Because we have lots of oils that we get free, or maybe we bought for one thing and then that resolved itself and now it's just sitting. I don't know what else to do with it. And so when you register for the event, you put in, well, what are the oils you want to know more about? And I'll tell you more things that you can do with those oils. Or like a very fun class that we did. It was called Ask Annie, because that's my sister Annie. And you would tell her what you want her to research, and then we'd bring everybody together, and then she would like read off her answers. And that ended up turning into something called What I Do When ... So, because that's the most frequent question I get. Well, what do you do when blah, blah, blah happens? Well, what do you do when you have migraines? Or what do you do when you have this? And so, this is an opportunity for us to breathe life into the possibilities of what the oils at your fingertips. They're sitting there. You need to just grab them. Another practical tip that I can offer is a reactivation strategy. Would you like to hear about that? Okay, so what we learned from doTERRA is that people often stop buying, not because they don't love the oils, but because they just feel either overwhelmed or they have too many at their fingertips, right? And so using that same concept, well, what are the oils that you don't use? So I had a woman who had canceled her LRP, but she loved the oils. And so I just reached out as a customer service opportunity, right? Building these thriving relationships and said, well, listen, I don't want you to buy another oil, but what I do want to do is I want you to make a list of all the oils that you have in your home still, and I will give you 2 ways you can use them every day, because I just want you to get the value out of the oils that are in your home still to this day. And that she did. She gave me like maybe 10 different oils. And so and they weren't, off the beaten track oils. They were kind of a lot of um, you know, the favorite kit oils. So it was very easy to send her an email or a message that just said, okay, you're going to, you know, put this in your water or put this by your bed. And wouldn't you know, like 2 months later, she reactivated her account. She got back on loyalty rewards, and she did that for a while. And I think it's just that, we take the time to nurture that relationship, and I'll say it again, to breathe life into the oils at your fingertips. And so any reactivation strategy is always going to have that at its heart. This is me speaking to you, like, tell me more about your life. And maybe the oil at your fingertip isn't what you need. And so sometimes I'll offer to trade, like, you give me that oil. Like maybe, you forgot to change your LRP and you got another oil of the same thing. And so I will be like, all right, I'll trade you. I'll give you one that you want and you give me that one, right? And then I'll use that one maybe for a gift or, a raffle prize or something like that. So there's always different ways that we can, be really good customer service agent. Part of my job when I was at the airline and then when I worked in the city, was marketing and advertising, which had I worked in a sales office for a little while. And the one thing I learned from those, 4 or 5 years was look outward, not inward. Look at who you're talking to and what does the audience need to hear from you. Sometimes it's hard because maybe you have a very diverse audience, but it's really like, who am I talking to? Like too often when we have social media campaigns and we just want to put everything out there. It's more cultivated than that. It's about who am I talking to? And even when you're writing a social media post or you're preparing a presentation, who's your target audience? Like actually see a person behind it that could be maybe an avatar for many persons that have that same issue. And now you're speaking from the heart. Now, when you're offering them a solution, you have the ability to really connect with them. That's what we do here in doTERRA, connecting one-on-one. That's why all of the big bucks in the commission is all about who enrolled you. Like that enroller relationship is paramount to doTERRA, and it should be also for you. That relationship will live forever, and cultivating that relationship is our job. And I will give you a short story about that. And so, we all have teams, right? Different legs. And I remember having a strategy session, and one of my legs in my head, I went, oh, that's my dead leg. I'm like, how terrible is that of me to even think that? And I looked at it and said, no, that's a good friend of mine. She just is choosing not to share and do any building. But I literally shifted my perspective of what I was talking about. And it was a who, not a what, right? People are not problems to solve. They're a person to love. And so I called her that day and said, I really miss just talking to you. And we were both driving to work about the same time. So I said, well, how about like once a week, we just get on the phone and we talk while we're driving. And we didn't talk about doTERRA, we just talked about life. But over the course of doing this every week, doTERRA came up. Oh, well, Dominic was sick. And so we learned a whole new protocol for, how to, get mucus out of the lungs, right? And then we would talk about an event coming up. And all of a sudden, she became a regular at all my events and reactivated, not her account, because she was always purchasing oils, always using oils, but she re-engaged in like sharing with other people and being interested in the business opportunity of, not going all the way, but being more engaged. And that's all I wanted. It still didn't have this huge production, but it was the relationship that was so important to me that now I had a different perspective, and so did she. And, you know, she has been, a fast friend coming to my house every single week for dinner. I'm like, it just like this is how we bless ourselves, is
Mhm.
by reaching out and seeing not a problem to solve, but a person to love. And that's an easy way that we can all do that.
Wow, what a powerful example of truly seeing people and seeing just their humanity, right? Just they're not a problem, they're a person. And such a powerful concept.
It is. It is.
We've had a
So,
few people, we just had a few questions roll in. So people and I'm loving everything you're sharing. Thank you so much for the practical, the different types of gatherings that you're hosting and the way that you're connecting with your team and serving in such powerful ways. Okay, somebody's asking, can you give an example? That was like, geez, 10 minutes ago. So I'm not sure what that is. Becky says, is the lunch and learn in person? If so, how do you reach people outside of your area?
okay. So the Lunch and Learn is in person. Um, I have a pretty big, what I'll say, the OG community of the people that, first got started. And one of the things that I do is to actually, well, let's get into specifics. So I set up with the restaurant a room that we could use. So we're all together and we have the ability to close the doors and have some privacy. It's a price fixed menu. So for $20, you get, your choice of one of these, 5 meals, and it's lunch. So it's, salads or like half sandwiches and soups and stuff like that. We raffle off one free lunch and you get raffle tickets by just answering questions or asking. And, when people are answering, you don't have to have the right answer. You still get a ticket. And so it just is incentivizing participation. Just, speak your voice. One of the other things we do is, as questions are being answered, we put it back in the community and say, okay, well, does anybody have an experience with what this person just brought up? Like, okay, this person brought up, what can you do for IBS? And I'm like, okay, anybody else in the community ever have digestive issues? And then someone stands up and tells their story. And so I'm creating storytellers, and then they get a ticket, and we raffle off lots of great prizes. I tend to raffle off half and half. Some oils for maybe the newbies that don't have oils yet, but I mostly raffle off things you can do with your oil because I want people to buy the oils to use the other things like a keychain or roller bottle sets or the spray mist like holders that you can clip onto your bag, things like that. They're not expensive, and we get to get people buying oils. And I encourage people, let me see your wish list when you leave here today. I want you to leave here with two things. The first is, too often we abdicate our responsibility for our own health and we put it in the hands of somebody else and go, I have no idea what to do here, help me, rather than, no, I want to empower you. I want to bring that responsibility back into your life. And then I want you to leave with a wish list, because all the information we share, information for the sake of information, doesn't really serve you. It is what you do with that information. So what do I want you to know? And what do I want you to do? Those are two things that at every single event, I make sure this is what I want you to know, probably some cool fact or, some way the body works and how doTERRA's product fits in as a solution. But I also want you to do something because of what you just heard. And so we'll also give out raffle prizes for, okay, who's putting that in their cart? Like how many people want Let's See You Now, right? How many people want lemon myrtle, So we have a lot of fun. And um, it's something I also reward people who bring somebody new with them. So
Mm.
I have a treasure trove of On Guard spray, a hand spray mist. You can buy the 5 pack. And so I just have them and, I give it to the person who brought somebody. And, there, a lot of times, we try to cover the cost of somebody new, the cost of their meal. So it's a lot of fun.
I love that. So great. And I love the practical examples you're giving. Have you ever tried or thought about doing a similar thing online or some way for people to connect who aren't all together?
Like you can do like socials online, but the way we do those, it's just game night. And so we teach through games. So I have um, a free Jeopardy lab that you can create questions and answers. And so we'll play Jeopardy or we'll play Heads Up and we'll use like oils. Sometimes we'll play 20 questions, like I'm thinking of an oil, and they have to ask really good questions to narrow down the field to what is the oil. Then we'll do it the reverse. Who am I? I'll give the clues and they have to guess. And we just play games. So there's a way to bring your community together, even when you're not physically in the same location. The other way we've done it is I've encouraged leaders who are in that area to have their own lunch and learn, right? So I now have 2 leaders who are doing it in their own locations and hope that, they'll see the beauty of bringing your community together. Even if you just, we started like it was every Wednesday morning, we just got together and had tea together. That was one of our first, just let's gather and look at life through the eyes of living and loving and natural solutions lifestyle. So those are easy to do. And I think a lot of my leaders do that. And even when I travel to different locations, I will make myself available to that particular community to say, okay, let's have an oil social while I'm here. Not necessarily a class. Let's have an oil social. Let's bring people together and let them experience food that has oils in it. And then we talk about topics that are important to them. And so I usually come with a little whiteboard, and people who are there get to write down, what their issues are. Sometimes, depending on the community, if everybody knows each other, the whiteboard works. But if people are a little more private, we'll just have people put it on a slip of paper and fold it, put it in a bowl, and then we'll just mix the bowl up and pick one at a time, and then we'll deep dive into that topic. And so somebody in the room is getting the benefit, but everyone's hearing it. So
Amazing. So great. Somebody's asking, is the lunch and learn for wellness advocates only, or is it also for your customers or prospects?
it's everybody. And I encourage wellness advocates to bring their customers and like sit at the table with them, have their own conversations. Um, you know, when I first was doing it, it was really bringing the team together, which was customers and wellness advocates. But as I've grown into, okay, there's a mission here to spread the message, I am really encouraging my leaders to bring new people. And then we kind of spoil them while they're there. And
Hmm.
we've had enrollments where like literally we're sitting in the room for another hour helping people get started.
Beautiful. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing. I'd love to open it up for questions. If anybody wants to come on live, go ahead and raise your hand. But Terri, talk to us a little bit while we're waiting for questions to come through. Talk to us about mindset. What have you found, top mentors, books, podcasts? How would you coach someone who really wants to be intentional about creating a winning mindset in doTERRA?
Okay, this is really, really appropriate. You and Natalie kind of taught us this with, mindset, skill set, tool set, and how it's like a three-legged stool, and you have to have all three in order to succeed. And so one of the things that we're doing for our our leaders and our customers who want to be sharers or builders is we do the doTERRA Success Academy.
Hmm.
And the first 20 minutes is all about mindset. And I think the biggest thing I would focus on is the fact that it's not a job, it's a choice. And so when you are offering the business opportunity, or if you're even offering someone the opportunity to get started with product, they have to have free agency. And agency, or part of that empowered living, is they have to have the ability to come in the room and leave the room whenever they want. That's what we have to know as leaders. And sometimes it's painful for us to watch someone who has been using the product to step out of the room for a little while. Sometimes it's hard for us to watch a sharer or a builder stop doing those things. But that's what entrepreneurial businesses are all about, that we have to them reason to choose in. Why should you come back in the room? And that's all about mindset. And sometimes as a leader, our mindset is, no, you have to be here. You have to support me. You have to come in this room. God, get in this room. But that's not how it works.
Hmm.
And so as soon as you detach yourself from the outcome, it's no longer about you. It's about us. It's about what does that other person want. And like one of the things that shifted my mindset was a strategy session I did with Natalie years ago, years and years ago, maybe like 8 years ago. And she was asking about my team, and there was one person who was like second or third level away from me. And I said, well, she's such a good sharer. She would be so good at this, but I can't really seem to get her to commit. And she's like, well, what does she want? And I went, what? And I'm like, she's like, what does she want? Like, what does that person want? And it gave me that outward mindset to say, it's not about what I want for her. It's about what she wants for her. And I think that was probably one of the most important things that I learned over the years, that free agency is something that we get to choose in or out every single day. And that's what we offer the people that build with us, the product users that come on board with us. And, our job is to give them this, curiosity, this wonder and awe for what is inside this room. Come in the room because what we have here is so amazing. And
Hmm.
once you do that, once you show that value, people are going to come in. Like money follows value. And when you're offering value, people come, and so does that money, because money is currency. It's a current, it's movement. It is not meant to be stagnant or held onto. And so, as we, put this like success academy together, mindset is right there. And that's what we teach. And then we teach the pipe system in that skill set. And then the tool set is how do we navigate technology so that it's actually helping us rather than hindering us.
Hmm.
And so between all of the resources that you provide in the shared success system and all that doTERRA provides, there's an enormous amount of technology, but are you using it, right?
Hmm.
Do you take those little videos and put a keyboard shortcut on your phone so that
Hmm.
anytime you're talking to someone about MetaPower or about the sleep system or about the gut biome,
Hmm.
that you have that link that you can just type one or two letters and send them the link. You don't have to go look it up, right? We call those
Yep.
keyboard shortcuts. Or, just like we do something, it's called the Living Well Challenge.
Hmm.
And it's 5 days of the foundational wellness bundle. They take a survey before, very simple questions like, how, your energy, your sleep, your digestive issues, right? Just so we mark where we're starting. They take the product for 5 days, and then they take another survey to see, did we move the needle? And along those 5 days, we're sending them one short video on each product. So the first day you'll get something about VMG, and then you'll get something about the omegas, and then the gut biome, and then what is living a lifestyle creating this foundation, a terrain for healing. And then at the end, we invite them, if you've enjoyed 5 days, then we invite you to sign up for 30 days. And then that is also a lead to, well, 30 days leads you into the 90-day program. And so it's kind of our funnel system. And, it's this cute little bag that, they have to actually buy it. So we use the one day that you get that doTERRA has nicely packaged. And then we provide the other 4 days in these other little, bags. And we give them this little checklist that is, this is what you do for 5 days, super simple. And just watch for the email or the text. They get to choose which they prefer. And it's already built. It has all of the language. It's already there. So anyone who wants to, go to my Google Drive and download it, you're welcome to do it. I'm standing on the shoulders of other people who have done a lot of this work, and I just kind of personalized it, made it my own, and now offer it to my leaders. And some of my leaders made it their own, and other leaders are using my system. Some people are more technologically proficient than others, but we help to meet them where they are. And so, it's a good way for that third leg, that tool set that has to stand next to our skill at inviting and presenting and enrolling people, and that mindset to let people come in and out as they go.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing about the 5-day challenge. Some people are asking if you're willing to share that PDF. They would love that. If you want to just send that to me, that I can post it in the Facebook group.
Okay.
So that would be amazing. Jeff, I think you've got a question you want to ask live. Go ahead.
Yes, and thank you, Andy, and thank you, Terri, for coming on with this wealth of knowledge. My goodness, I've been writing my pen smoking. Thank you. Me and my wife, she enrolled me years ago, and we have a team that most I didn't enroll, and I'm glad. They become inactive. What do you recommend? I was writing down about your reaching out to them about the oils that they have on hand, and they've been dormant for 6 months, 12 months, or eight. So do you have a formula that works for reaching out to people that are just falling off?
Yes. And it starts with, I think you said that you don't really have a relationship with them.
That's true.
You don't know
Some may
them.
have been enrolled by our upline, and that upline has disappeared. So we don't really have a connection with these folks.
Okay. So let me ask you this. How would you create a connection where none exists? Like, let's say you walk into a room, it's a party, maybe you only know the host. What would you do first?
Hi, my name is Jeff. What is yours? How do you know the host? In
Right.
person, I can do these. That
Yep.
one.
And that's just it, is like, what's common to you both. So you find what's common to you both, and then you say, hey, I like, kind of introduce yourself and why are you reaching out to them, and find that common ground, and a lot of times you're actually in a situation where it's kind of like a cold call. And so,
Mhm.
like, I would do both the actual talk to them in person and, the email, and introduce one to the other. So, send them an email saying who you are, and that I'm going to call you in the next day or two because I'm really interested in, like, we have a common ground. We both love doTERRA essential oils. And I would really love to know more about, how how life is going for you, and if you can find out who was the common ground between you, that's a plus. So and so stepped away, and a lot of times my lingo is kind of like, hey, I'm a fellow doTERRA enthusiast, and I love helping people. If you're willing to share some things that are going on in your life, I could make some suggestions. And or if you just want to talk and get to know what's new at doTERRA, I would love to offer a free consult over the phone. Like I have the iToby, so sometimes I'll offer, would you like to do a scan remotely to see what your body is asking you to do? There's a lot of different ways, but it's all about how do I create that relationship? And,
Hmm.
Jeff, you said, I know how to do this in person. So the only reason that you can't do it online or in the email is because you're not seeing the person. So I want you to see the person, even though
Okay,
maybe you're on the phone, see them as a
right.
person, really say, I'd really love to get to know a little bit about you. What's the what is it? Ford, FORD, family,
Hmm.
organization, relationships, and their dreams. Does
Thank
that
you.
does that help?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. The connection with all these people is we're alive, and we all signed up with doTERRA. But I don't know enough about them. I can research
Right.
what they ordered way back when, but
Right.
that may be in there.
So how
I'll
so
see
how
what I
about
can do.
this? How about
Go
how
ahead.
about be brave and either do a short 2-minute video on one of your favorite products. Make it one of the crowd pleasers that almost everybody loves. Maybe it's a citrus oil, or maybe it is the Deep Blue products, or maybe the On Guard products. I mean, like, what is it that everybody sort of like, no matter who you talk to, they're going to have some commonality of issues now and again, even if it's not a chronic issue for them, and send it to them and breathe life into what's possible when you have Deep Blue at your fingertips, or when you have On Guard. Like, I love On Guard. I have it attached to my pocketbook because I spray my hands before I touch anything in public. I'm like, I
Hmm.
love Deep Blue. Like, it's something that I use. I had a hip replacement surgery, and like, just tell them about you. Be vulnerable and say, this is what I've done. What's going on with you? And is there some way I can help? A lot of times I'll pick a resort. Excuse me, I'll pick a resource from either the Enroll Pro system or the doTERRA training site, free courses,
Hmm.
and say, hey, I know that you love, natural solutions, or that you've shown an interest in the past. Take this free course on the gut biome and see what amazing things your body does when you give it the right tools. Like, so be a little brave and send them something. Send them something. Maybe they'll like it, maybe they won't. But like, offer it to them and say, if this is not your gig, like if digestive issues isn't your thing, or pain isn't your thing, tell me what your thing is, and I'll send you a resource on that. So
Yeah.
now, like, you're being a
And
little vulnerable, and then they're
mhm.
replying and saying, okay, I can do that too.
Thank you. That's excellent. Yes,
Okay,
first
great.
thing with success would be getting them to respond.
Yeah,
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
you're welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. And thank you, Terry. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your incredible journey. I think I can tell from the comments that everyone has been deeply inspired, very touched by your story, your example, everything that you've chosen to create with doTERRA. It's beautiful what you've done in your family and your community. It's just a gift. So thank you so much for inspiring us today, Terry. Any parting words, any words of wisdom as we conclude?
I think the parting words are just to look at life through the eyes of gratitude. Don't look at what you don't have, look at what you do have. And it is in that gratitude statement that you will find your purpose, that you will find your next step, that even in the midst of all of the experiences that I have lived through, it is gratitude that gets me out of bed every day and says, I'm still here smiling. And so I invite you to do that as well.
Beautiful. Beautiful invitation. I hope each of you leans into that and sees it for what it is. Such an amazing invite. So thank you again so much, Terry, sending so much love and light to you and yours. And thank you all for joining, and we will see you all next week.
Okay.